We've seen how we can take a Bible passage or a Spirit of Prophecy quote, particularly the one we looked at, GC 611 paragraph 1, and we can see how we can make some, I would suggest, some quite profound application without doing any disrespect to the original intent that Ellen White gave. So we saw that she lined up Revelation 18 verse 1 as it comes down and empowers the third angel's message, lines that up with the Millerite history of 1840 to 44. It's a glorious manifestation of the power of God, and also the 16th century Reformation. And as soon as we did that, rather than trying to make a different application, we could see how these two lines actually line up really neatly. Perhaps the thing that may have unlocked it for us, because people were struggling at first to know how to do that, Ellen White had Revelation 18 and the third angel's message, and she lined this up with Millerite history, which was 1840 to 1844. And we wouldn't normally do that. We wouldn't normally line up 1840 with Revelation 18, except in the context of 9/11. I want to suggest that when we do that, it's an application, it's not the original intent. If we start putting Ellen White's original intent over this, we know that this is the Sunday law. So we would not normally line up the Sunday law with 1840. It's not something that we would normally do. But I wanted to show us that that's exactly what Ellen White is indicating that we can do. And when we did that, we took 1844 and made it as a separate waymark, this 4-year period, and then we noticed that we can make 1844, which was a shut door, another shut door here, which is the close of probation. So as soon as you do that, then you can see that you get a plethora of light, because then we can go and backtrack 2 years to 1838, and we can go back and we can say this is the agitation of the Sunday law. And then we can start making application, because the agitation isn't just this idea that there's going to be trouble coming when the church and the state come together and we're going to lose our religious liberty, but it then introduces the idea of making a prediction. If we can predict here, the inference is that we can predict there. Then we went back into a nice little historical passage from Dempsey's work, page 96, paragraph 3, and there we saw, which I think helped us to open this up in a really neat way, that the Millerites understood the loud cry came in 2 phases. Speaks about a revival of the missionary enterprise, and once we did that, we could see that this was Midnight Cry 2 and this was Midnight Cry 1. We didn't see in the passage that 1840 in and of itself was the Midnight Cry 1, but we can develop a logic to show that. And they didn't call this Midnight Cry 2, they called this the true Midnight Cry, and this the alarm. And once you do that and you bring that into the Sunday law history, now you've got light that we didn't have before. It's defining what the Sunday law looks like. With the Sunday law, we're going to be given an alarm. Sometime later, we're going to be given the true cry. So once you start developing that logic, you can see how you can open truths up. Then what we did, because this is the summer, let me come back and do that properly. This was what in this history was the Midnight Cry 2. It wasn't here, it was here. And this is the true. And therefore we can come here and we can mark a loud cry. So as soon as you do that, then we have legitimacy to say that the loud cry, the alarm of the loud cry, begins at the Sunday law, and then the true midnight cry would be the loud cry. And if we introduced or overlaid 277 early writings, paragraph 1, and I think you'd have to do paragraph 2, then we can see that this angel comes in at the right time as what is beginning to happen with the third angel. As it begins to swell to a loud cry. So you can see the swelling here. It's going to swell to a loud cry in exactly the same model that we have here. The alarm and the true midnight cry. So you can see there's a number of things that we can do. What is between 1840 and the summer of 44? What's the premier waymark that goes in between them? April the 19th. So I haven't thought about this, but I'm suggesting there are two major ones we could go for. We could go for 42, which is the creation of the chart, which is not a major waymark, or we'd go for April 44. And this is the summer. And so now what you can do is overlay, or not overlay, you can bring up these lines, one of those two, and then you're going to create another waymark here. I'm not saying there's two, all I'm saying is I'm not sure which one. We'd have to work out a logic to figure out which waymark it was. Was it 42, the creation of the chart, or April, which is this disappointment that they're receiving, because there's going to be another waymark here. We know that there's another waymark here because when we take the history that we're now currently in, and this is 2012, this would now be 2014, and this would be 2018, and this would be 2019. We've seen that there's another waymark in between here, which is 2016. So we can now develop that logic there. 2016 is a secondary waymark that's between the Sunday law here and the close of probation, or Raphia, and this is the loud cry, 2018. So there's this additional waymark here. So it may not be 42 or April, it may be another waymark, but all I'm saying is that there's another waymark, and if we were minded to do that, we could go into that history and dig it out, what it would be. As I say, it may be 42, it may be April, it may also be August, Concord camp meeting. We'd have to work out which it is. But we certainly know that there's another waymark here, based upon our own history here. Does that make sense? I don't know if anybody's thought about that or has any idea. No thoughts? The reason why it's interesting to do that is because if you were to take this history here, 14, 16 and 18, and then Raphia, you can see how we're lining Raphia up with October. When this line was originally created, how did we create this line? This was October, this would be August, and this would be July. So this would be July that we're marking, and therefore this would also be August. This is August the 1st, and this is August 14th, 15th, because we'd mark this as Concord. So you can see this is July, but in this line it's 1840. So we've got two different lines and we're applying them in a different way. We're taking Millerite history and changing it when this line was created. But all I want us to see is that here we've got an extra waymark. I don't know if anybody's got any thoughts of what it may or may not be. Would it be the creation of the chart? Or would it be the disappointment? I don't think it would be Concord at that scale. Have any thoughts? I'm not saying, I don't know if people have ever noticed that or thought about it, because I think maybe that structure was something new that we hadn't seen, so maybe we need time to think about it. But all I'm saying is that we'd have to develop a logic that's going to line up 2016 with this waymark and the history here in the Millerites.
So, my thought was I should go with April 19th.
April the 19th?
Based on the arrival of second message, because is the one who's going to be empowered in a summer.
Based upon the arrival of the
second message.
Okay, so remember, Revelation 18 would be here back in 1840, so we wouldn't line that up. We'd have to use a logic not about the arrival of the angel itself, I don't think. You can still use April 44, but you'd have to use a different narrative, a different story. It wouldn't be the arrival of the angel, because that's already happened with the Sunday law. Anybody got any thoughts? Nope.
So, I'm just thinking now.
Yes, I don't think we've thought about it before, so it's premature. But I think even if we give it 2 minutes of discussion, put it to one side, maybe pick it up at the end of the week, because I think it would be really nice if we could develop a logic to show that.
So I was thinking that structure also, you can get the structure that it gives at the close of probation to the second advent, where you have the death decree
yes.
and the voice of God. But we know that the death decree was a painful experience. It's a painful experience for the other 4,000. We know April 19th was a painful experience for the Millerites, who are a symbol of Jacob.
So what Brother Rogers is saying, that Jacob's time of trouble begins with the death decree. It doesn't technically begin at the close of probation. We know we have two waymarks there. We have the death decree and what you can arguably call the loud cry, where you hear the voice of God crying. And that death decree is a disappointment to God's people. It's a time of distress, a time of trouble. And April 44 has very similar characteristics. It throws them into a time of trouble, not only because they've made this mistake, but also all the Christian world has done what in April? It's turned against them, and we see that at the death decree. So I don't think we know if it's correct. It's something to think about, but it has those characteristics to it. Brother William?
I think I will go with April 19th. And my thoughts are the quote from Darmstadt we used to develop 1840. In that quote, Darmstadt and Awi was bringing out April 19. And if we go to April 19, this was a Peter experience. And if we bring it down to 2016, we can see a Peter experience in the movement. Maybe I'm not sure.
Okay. What was the bitter experience that we had in 2016?
This was when we had this shaking between this movement and the Tree of Life. I'm saying it was somehow Peter.
Okay, so Tree of Life, we have the interaction with Tree of Life in 2016. Obviously the presidential election, I'm not sure if that has what impact that has.
And then please, in April 19, there's that disappointment, and there's a light that came at that time. But when we compare 2016, we see that there's a disappointment, like breaking up of, between two of light and us, and then we see that the light of Daniel 11, verse 40, that verse 40 clarity came at that time, which is the light comparing to April 19.
Okay, and so 2016, there's a disappointment, but there's also great light that comes up. And we read what happened in April 44.
Months before Samuel Snow.
Sorry?
Months before Samuel Snow.
So months before Samuel Snow is giving these predictions, and I can't remember where we read it. It said that there was light. Where did we read that there? Early writings, the Advent movement illustrated. So we saw that there's light in April 44. There's very little information about 42. 44, April seems the one that's strong to me. So we've definitely got a midnight cry in 1840. We've got this light in April 44, and then the light becomes glorious by the time you get to the midnight cry in the summer. So we've got glorious manifestation, we have light, and then we have glory. So I'm going to take 42 out, and I'm suggesting, based upon what we've said at the moment, that it looks like April 44 has characteristics. So let's just write that down. April the 19th, 1844, thank you. And we're saying the death decree. And why are we saying the death decree? Because it's a disappointment. And then we're saying 2016, because what do we get in 2016? We get a separation, and we get light. We get separation and we get light. And then we can say also April the 19th. What happened in April the 19th? The second angel's message arrived. So I'll put April the 19th, 44. It's that way mark. And when that second angel came, we also had light.
I was having some thought, but it's not quite clear. April 19th, we are seeing the Western horn of America being broken, and in 2016, the election of the 45th president. I don't know if...
Okay, so my brother's making a connection that in April, the horn of Protestantism began to be broken, and then he's marking 2016 as the horn of Republicanism starting to be broken because of the presidential election. They've voted in a dictator who's going to begin to do this work, even though we know that work had begun before. So there's some kind of connection there. There's very little I can think of about 42. Any other thoughts? So let me write that down. So we'll go back to 2016. If you left space for 2016, we can see the election. And what we did was we said April 44 is the Protestant horn, and 2016 the Republican horn. So two horns, they can line up that way. That seems two nice thoughts. Brother Rob, you got any thoughts? Anyone else?
I don't know what we can say about 1842. Ellen White and her family, 7 of them are excommunicated from the church, Methodist Church. So I don't know if there is a prophetic application in our time.
So there's an excommunication in 42. I'll put that. Disfellowship. Sorry?
That one I support it because in Uganda in 2016 there was a large scale of disfellowship.
So in 2016 there was a lot of disfellowships going on.
I also want to add something. What was happening in Vatican?
In
Vatican.
In 2016? I don't know. Oh, do you know? Or are you just asking me? I mean, asking the car.
When did the current Pope elected into office?
2013. Sorry?
Benedict retired in 2013.
Yeah, when he retired, the weeks later, they elected a new Pope. It's 2000. You've got me worried there. It's 2013, isn't it? The current Pope? Pretty sure. 2013, yeah. It's not 16, it's 13. No, it's 13. Surprising, he's been a Pope for a long time, 5 years. It's gone, 5 years gone by really quick.
Okay, I think I've got a connection of 1842 deep disfellowship. I think 2016 we are seeing development of work of organization and coordination is taking place in 2016. That is what I can say about it.
And you want to connect that with 42?
Yeah, 42.
Because they had their first general conference. Because they have their first general conference in 42. What do you see in 42 with respect to organisation?
Yeah.
Okay.
2016.
Organisation. Where do we see organisation in 2016, by the way? What is the organisation that's going on in 2016? The ordinations?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's organisation in 2016, and it's the first conference in 42. So maybe we have to think about it more, because we'll get more 42 ones as well coming up.
So let me ask a question. In April 19, when separation, when those who are at the point of the separation, what did those people who are left did? Did they make an organization?
I think it becomes more formal, yes. And we could also argue disfellowshipping, although we've got Ellen White's disfellowshipping, when they separate, that's where the real disfellowshipping might have occurred, in April, as opposed to 42. Okay, so I didn't want to labour the point.
I have a question on the downline here.
This one?
Yeah, I see logical, but what Dancing is teaching is not teaching what we are doing. Because Dancing is teaching that there is an alarm and a two loud cry. An alarm in the Middle Rights for 1840, and the two loud cry the summer. But what they were alarming in 1840 was April the 19th. So, but when we come to our history, I think 25 will be the alarms for 2014. Not 2014 as the alarm. But we are seeing there.
So that's not this one. You're critiquing. Okay, so you're critiquing this one, yeah.
Yeah. How are we making 2014 as the alarm?
2014, whether or not we realise it or not, is the alarm for the close of probation.
But in 2012 we were giving, we were predicting a close of probation. We were giving an alarm for society.
We're predicting the Sunday law.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's the same as predicting the close of probation. We could argue that. But technically, 1840 is going to this point, and the summer is going to this point. They're both going to the same point, aren't they? They're both going to here, even though the date is wrong.
Yeah.
I'm saying 2014, even though 2012 is predicting 2014, the Sunday law is talking about that event. When I mark that event, I mark the close of probation. It's not marking raffia per se. And the same with this one.
So, I wanted to understand something. This is May 14.
Sorry?
This is May 1842?
May, June.
May, June. So we are connecting with the 2016.
I'm saying there is another waymark here, which is 2016, between 1840 and the summer. The two major waymarks that I'm familiar with, there may be others, is 1842 and April 1844. So all I asked was, can we make some connection? And we had quite a few for April the 19th, and we've got a few now for 1842. Whether 1842 would be May or June. The fellowshipping would obviously be June. The organisation would be May. So I'm happy. Oh,
Okay, I have a question. So, when we see 1840, we see that it is the first midnight crowd.
yes,
And it was predicting the close of probation.
yes.
It failed in April.
Sorry? Which failed in April. Yes,
So, but when we come to our line here, so we see the prediction was made and we failed in 2014. So, which prediction was made in 2014, which failed somewhere there? Or where did the prediction fail? Because we see the prediction of the first midnight cry was made in 1840, which is the first midnight cry and failed April 19.
why is everyone being so critical about my line? I thought it was good. Brother Rogers, explain. Do you understand his question?
Yeah. So he's asking, when you have midnight cry 1, you have a message on time predicting the close of probation in the spring of 44.
Speak a little bit louder.
So his question is, in midnight cry 1, you have a message of time. William Miller's message is basically pointing to the second advent of Christ, close of probation in the spring of 44. But we have lined up 1840 with 2014, which is midnight cry 1. So then we should see some kind of prediction of midnight cry 1 pointing to something in the future that fails.
Or that we've got wrong in some way, some shape or form.
Yeah. So I think that's all that he's asking.
I know what he's asking, I'm asking you to answer him. He's asking.
So my explanation is, when you're looking at those two histories, there may be subtle differences to them. And I don't think that everything from that line should be exact in this line. Because as much as we say that, for example, Millerite history points to our history, obviously we know there are some things which are different in our history to Millerite history. So I'm willing to use that argument to see that despite that, the fact that we see some differences does not prove that line to be weak. But what I see is that the structure is firm that we developed from one.
Does that answer your question or not?
Okay, I think we can make that argument. But I still have a problem with that. Because in 1838, we see the prediction made and it was true in 1840. When we come to 2012, we see that the prediction is made
And it was
somehow true.
It was true. I don't know what somehow true means. Why only somehow true? Which bit is not true? Okay, the bit that's not true is in 1838, he's not saying Christ is going to come in 2 years' time. He's not saying that. He's saying Revelation 9 is going to be fulfilled. So here in 2012, people are saying in 2 years it's going to be the Sunday law. And you're saying, well, it's partially fulfilled, but it's not the Sunday law that they were thinking. That's what you mean by partially fulfilled or partially correct. Okay? So does that cause you a problem? Yes, it causes you a problem. Is this something new or unique?
I don't know whether to answer this question. 1840, we are calling it false, not that in some sense it was, not that it was false, but I don't know how the other names to give it, but it was not the ideal movement tribe the way I'm understanding it. And the prediction that they're giving in 1840 is a prediction that has been given by Miller from 1818 in the Parminder agreement. So they're giving that cry the cry that they're giving in 1840 began long time ago, at the beginning of the work, 98. When you come to our history, 2014, the cry that is still being given is the cry that began in 89. Now their cry for the Millerites gets clarified in April 19. I don't know whether we have already agreed on this in 19. Gets clarified in some shape or form in April 19. In our history, our cry gets clarified in 2016. So, and how it's clarified is that we come now to understand that Russia is still a subject of that prophecy. Now, and their cry, the clarification that comes in their cry, they now begin to understand that the judgment power that they are proclaiming is going to extend to 1844.
Say that bit again.
Which bit?
The last bit.
I'm saying the cry that they have in 1840 is trying to predict the close of probation in that history. The chapter message, the judgment hour message. Then it gets clarified in April 19. And it's going out to be given, that true cry for that time is going to be given in the psalm. In our history, in 2014, we have a cry. I don't know whether we have a cry that we've picked up from our time of the end. Gets clarified in 2016, continues to be clarified and given in force in 2018.
I don't think it's that unusual to have two lines which don't have the exact same characteristics, but they have identical structures. I actually don't think that's a new phenomena that is just we're picking up here. What I do want to say is, in a class like this, or if I'm teaching or something, I try and lift up every stone and have a look underneath to try and expose everything. It's really easy to hide stuff and just sort of jump through things and make it all look good. And when you do that, sometimes you don't get the questions asked, which is often why I ask questions, because I want us to see the weaknesses in some of these arguments. So the fact that you're seeing it doesn't have identical parity with the Millerite line, I'm saying that's not a new phenomena. We have other circumstances when it doesn't exactly match, but we accept those things. I'm saying the structure seems to fit, not only seems, I think that it is fitting. And I guess what I'm going to say is just based upon what Brother Roberts just said a minute ago, which is not directly about your question, is I'm pretty sure now it's April. And the reason why I'm sure now is because all of these were just, if you like, punctuated thoughts. And what should we be looking for? We should always be looking for a story. And what he just did, if you didn't notice, he tied up 3 different waymarks: 40, April, and the summer. And when he tied them all together by one concept, which was the cry. He had a cry running all the way through. And as soon as you do that, you need the middle one to help establish that you've got a story that runs all the way through. Because it's easy to do one from the beginning and the end, because we've just got cry and cry. But if you can get the middle one to also have a cry in it, then you know your story is correct. Even though you may be able to say 42 has characteristics that seem favourable to it. And what did he say was April 44? What happens in April 44? How does it clarify it? Positively or negatively? I had 2 answers. Sorry? Who said positively? Why positively? What's positive in April that's going to clarify the midnight cry?
Because
Speak louder.
it is positive because at that time when it was qualified, they were firm in what they believed.
Let me stop you. What you've just done is you're saying the result was positive. I was asking about the event, the waymark itself. What's positive about the waymark that clarifies the cry. Because they have a great disappointment. And if you did an examination and multiple choice is A or B, and the correct answer is B, and you said A, you'd be disappointed, but you now have a clarification on the correct answer, which was B, because you know you got it wrong. So 44 is a disappointment, but the disappointment itself is what creates the clarification. Because if it was positive, there wouldn't have been a mistake, and the rest of the history wouldn't have occurred because they would have got the correct answer. Christ would have returned at the end of 43. So it has to be a disappointment that produces the clarification on the cry. Yeah? So I want to go for April 44. I think this bottom argument is, for me, the one that is the definitive answer, and all the other ones help that to establish that to be true, because they make a cry in 40, they find the mistake in 44, and the mistake itself brings clarity that the cry still needs to carry on because he's not here yet. So there's a clarification on the cry, and then it gets straightened out properly in the summer of 44. You can bring that to our history. In 2014, there's a cry that's made that probation's about to close. I think what we have to remember is Sunday law is not close of probation, and even though you're predicting the Sunday law, and you might think you're predicting something, you're not. So here in 2014, there's a cry that's being made, and what that cry is that probation's about to close. Is that correct? It's not correct. Probation's not about to close, because we've got a whole heap of history before that can happen, because we have no idea about priests, Levites and Nethinims. So if you want to argue it the other way, we've targeted the wrong Sunday law. We targeted the Sunday law of the priests, and we didn't even know it. So in 2016, there's a clarification on that issue. What is the clarification in 2016 that tells us that the cry is something else? What's the clarification? Raphia. So now we've got Raphia and Panium. So this is a clarification on the light. Even though we've developed midnight by that stage, and we've developed the line of the priest. All of that is already in place. 2016 is the clarification of when that event is. Now we've marked Raphia. We don't have any understanding of when Raphia is, what Raphia looks like, and then the true cry comes in 2018, and based upon the arguments that we've developed about the chart making business, this now is the true cry. It defines what Raphia is, it tells you when Raphia is, it has all the characteristics of the summer of 44. So I think, even though it apparently doesn't look an exact fit, it actually is a direct exact fit.
So there's something I want to...
It's a bit louder, sorry.
There's something I want to correctly understand. When these predictions being made in 2012 about 2014, the Sunday law that was anticipated then, is it the Sunday law that fulfilled 1151?
I'm going to say yes, because that's the only Sunday law we knew.
Okay, so then, if the Sunday law 1141 was the one that was being anticipated, and for a long time in this moment we've been teaching that probation clause of the Sunday law, which we are beginning to understand is not correct. So then, I'm understanding that this prediction was predicting the close of probation in 2015.
Okay.
But that fails in some way, then the Lord comes and clarifies that the close of probation is some history has to go through before we come to the close of probation. So it's in that sense that we are saying 2012 was predicting a close of probation.
Brother William, you had your hand up before. You didn't? Yeah? Okay. Anyone else?
So how can you explain the dilemma between the Sunday law and last law?
This one? How do we explain it? You mean its characteristics or what it is?
Yeah.
Well, some of the characteristics we've explained. There's the clarification on some information that we don't fully understand, so we know that. There's some kind of disappointment. We've seen that. Any other thoughts? Where'd you get the decree from?
That's it.
Oh, death decree. There's a decree. Someone had their hand up?
Yeah, I'm just asking about July. Could you clarify that July?
This one?
Yes.
Can we easily clarify why this is July? Why 2014 is July? I guess for me the simplest answer is because 2001 is April. That's that event here. 9/11 is April. Then 2014 is July. You could argue 2012 is May. So you have April, May, July, and then 2016 is August the 1st. And are you happy that 2018 is August? Midnight Cry. And that would make this October. So the connection between August the 15th, which is the loud cry, and the Sunday law, is the relationship between August the 1st and, sorry, not August the 1st, July 21st and August the 15th. Because you can mark that the Sunday law is midnight. Are you happy that you can mark Sunday law as midnight? Any questions?
So in the line that we have seen before of work operation is the time of right, then we see that decree. But there's something that I want to know. In that history, there's a work of Islam at that history. So could we see the work of Islam in our history?
In this history here,
Not 2014.
2016,
Can you come again?
he wants to see the work of Islam in 2016.
Why?
When?
Not on a specific way, but in the whole history.
So I think his question was, when you take the structure of close of probation, second advent, and that is to do you see the work of Islam?
Do we? I don't know. Where do we see the work of Islam in Jacob's time of trouble, or close of probation to second advent?
Can you answer the question?
He says that you see the work of Islam from close of probation to the second advent. He states that as a fact because that's what we all believe. So I'm just asking, how did we get that?
He was asking
Yeah, I'm asking you. If you don't know, that's fine, because I don't know, that's why I'm asking. I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just asking where we get it from.
I don't know how to explain it.
Okay?
So I think his question, some people may have the same mind. So we teach about the four winds. Hold, and lose at the close of probation. But we know in this system we teach the four winds at one level to be a symbol of Islam. So we expect to see the work of Islam because the four winds are loosed at the close of probation.
Yeah? Sorry?
And that's how we are.
So is that the argument you have? Okay, so I guess the problem that I have with that, because I guess I do have a problem, is if we go back to So maybe this isn't correct. I don't mean the logic. Maybe the waymarks don't line up properly. Maybe we have to give me some license, some poetic license. I'm saying the 1260 is the Sunday law. Are you okay with that? And this history here, from 538 to 1798. Because there's a Sunday law here in 538. You agree with that? If you want, if that was 2014 and 2016, maybe there's a work of Islam in 2016, because Islam comes in, even if I've done that generally, it actually comes in 606. So there's a 100-year gap there, whatever. I'm going to say this is Islam. Islam's doing its work here, and this is the second woe. And the first woe. So I'm going to say this is the first and second woe. Are you okay with that? So if that's the first and second woe, then in this history, we'll have Islam, and this is the third woe. 1 + 2 = 3. Do you agree with that? Okay, let me tell you what I think, then tell me if you agree, because you might not agree. So, at the end of this, we have a deadly wound. And here, we have a close of probation. And the person who delivers the deadly wound here at the end is not Islam, but it's the kings. So that's okay. And therefore, according to Revelation 17, it's not Islam that delivers the wound, it's the kings. So, I could be wrong, but I'm suggesting in the time of trouble, it's not Islam that's doing that work. It's the kings that are going to destroy her, not Islam, based upon that history. I don't know what we think about that.
Okay, based on the point that Roger has told us that it is a global question still coming, we see that it is roughly in Parminder, that Islam was loose from there, the global question. So maybe that was the intent of my question.
Okay, I get that. I don't know if Islam are going to be loosed from Raphia to Raphia to Panium. It may or may not be. I haven't seen the evidence for that yet. I've not got any problem whether it is or whether it isn't, because here in this history we've got 4 winds, and if you look at the 4 winds that Ellen White talks about, or the Millerites talk about, it's not Islam, is it? I think we've already got enough evidence that that's not Islam that's being referred to from 1844 to 1850. Sorry, 63. That is, I don't know if it's just political strife, or I've rubbed it out. No, you shouldn't rub it out. I think it's the things that happen in heaven, the shaking of the heavens, is going to cause the men's hearts failing them on earth. So I'm not sure that the 4 winds, if we go back to the Millerite understanding or Ellen White's, is Islam itself. We make an application of that. I'm not arguing with our application, I think it's sound. But it doesn't mean that Islam would necessarily be there, because we go to Revelation 7, it says, once the seal has happened at the close of probation, then release the 4 winds. Because those 4 winds are both natural and political strife. I don't know what we think about that. I don't know if that changes things too much for us. But we do know Revelation 17 says the people, or the entity that kills the woman, is not Islam. We're okay with that. So we'd have to ask ourselves, when did she get killed? in the time of trouble? It's not before, because she rules for 1 hour with the kings. What?
What have you said?
So, Revelation 17, who kills the woman? It's the kings. The kings kill her after they've ruled with her for 1 hour. The ruling of 1 hour is this period here. This is 1 hour. Tell me if you disagree. So that means she must be killed in this history. And the people who kill her is not Islam, it's the kings. Because Islam has failed its job. When we bring fractals into it, I'm not arguing that Islam isn't involved.
And she speaks about it in the book 4SP and Great Controversy.
4SP, Great Controversy.
Great Controversy 6:14, she says that as the angels of God cease to hold in check the fierce winds of human strife, human passion. I don't know what that means. So she calls here the winds are winds of human passion.
GC 614, and it's she doesn't say 4, she just says winds. I put 4 in parentheses. The 4 winds equals human passion.
Okay, and also she says the fierce winds of human passion, all the elements of strife will be let loose.
The elements of strife? To me, that sounds like the plagues, nature elements. So we either have to spiritualize all of that away and make it Islam, when to me it doesn't sound like Islam, and we know Revelation 17 says it's not Islam, but
The 10 kings that come together, I think Islam is part of them.
okay, so Islam might be a part of those 10 kings. Are we certain of that? We're not certain. And the reason we're not certain is because is Islam at the end of the world an independent ministry, or is it a state-sponsored entity? Basically, is it a country, or is it just a group of individual independently minded people? Which is it? Because if it's a state entity, they may never join, even though we said all the world joins. Just because the Bible says all the world wandered after the beast, you could have one person that doesn't, because every man's hand is against him, and he's against every man. So we might have license to do that. I haven't got clarity on that.
I also don't have clarity on that. If it's an unstate power,
The only reason I'm asking him is because we spoke about it before. Is Islam, that's going to be doing all of this work, is it just an independent ministry, group of people, or is it state? Is it Islam at a state level or a country level? And I'm not sure whether or not we have that information. If it was at a state level, not all of the world is going to go after it. Not all of the world is going to wander after the beast. Someone isn't going to be doing that. It'd be that country or countries, depending on how big Islam is. Does that make sense? We know for certain, when it says all the world wandered after the beast, who's not wandering after the beast? Who's not following the beast? We know God's people are not following the beast, and who else? Has to be radical Islam, doesn't it? Radical Islam is not following the beast either. We know radical Islam is not following the beast from this history to 1260, because what is the role of radical Islam? It's to punish the beast, isn't it? Once they make a Sunday law, when they make a Sunday law, the role of Islam is to punish the beast, so it won't be part of that all the world wandered after the beast, whether they're an independent ministry or they're a nation state. Whoever they are, they don't follow. So they may or may not be part of the 10 kings. That's all I'm suggesting. Independent ministry, all the Islamic states will be part of the 10 kings. If it's a state-sponsored entity, then the 10 kings exclude whichever country or countries that is. I don't know if we have that information. We need to have that information to make correct predictions and to understand exactly what's going on. Brother William.
Yeah, you said that you're not sure if between Rafi and Kenyam, Islam is used. You don't have evidence for that.
The only reason I'm saying that is because before we said Balaam gets hit 3 times, and we said 9/11, midnight cry, and Sunday law. If that still has integrity to it, then it's not Raffia. If we're going to start changing that, then Raffia, then we'd have to say maybe it's 9/11, Raffia, and Sunday law. I don't know what it is. I'm open to it, but I was just factoring in that our original understanding, which needs re-evaluating.
So there is a line we used to do in Revelation 9. I'm not sure if it's still viable, if it's still working. And that line we used to say 1449 is midnight and 1453 is midnight cry. Is that line still working?
Yes? I don't know.
Then I was thinking if it is working still, then probably if we look into it, we can see an activity of Islam and Islam being loosened. If it's still viable.
All we do know is from 2014 to 2019, Islam is involved. We know that because there's a proxy war going on. We know that is a Sunday law history, 14 to 19. We know it parallels this Sunday law history. We know it parallels the 1260. So we have Islam in all of those stages. If we were going to get this structure and bring it into our line, we then know at Raphia, the 4 winds are let loose because God's people are sealed. So we'd have to work out what are the 4 winds. Maybe that is the argument to show that Islam is let loose, and we haven't thought about the second attack with Balaam, where he crushes his foot. We thought was Panium. Maybe it becomes Raphia. Maybe we don't know. I'm not sure.
I think at application levels, we have multiple lines that show that at midnight Islam will be doing some type of activity, but what that activity is, there's no single line that shows that Islam will be attacking. It's just some activity in preparation for what happens at the midnight cry. For example, the line that is giving 1449, the 4 angels are loosed, but they don't act until 1453. If you come to the line of the Vandals, the sack of Rome, and then Battle of Capone, which will matter at the midnight cry. So there are multiple lines, but none of them shows Islam doing in terms of attacking between Raphia and Feni, but doing some sort of preparation for it. At application.
Do you remember that? Because you brought in the line of the first and second woe, and you have 1449, 1453, midnight cry.
Yeah, but we don't see some sort of attack in 1449, but we see it in 1453.
And 1453 is
Kenya.
midnight cry.
Yeah, if that is still working, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
If it's still working, we can see. And then if we go to 1451 again, we have some sort of trouble caused by Islam. That is true.
Okay, I don't know. So, but to answer Brother Paul's question, your original question was what?
Rafi and Panium.
Why are we talking about Rafi and Panium when we were talking about Sunday law?
I understand that, but maybe I'm the one who confused people, but shift to Rafi and Panium.
Okay. I don't know. I think we'd have to go to Revelation 9 and lay that out and think about that. Any questions about this? Is everyone clear what I'm suggesting here? And are we clear how we got there?
Yeah.
Yes? So, hopefully we'd all be at some level willing to teach that, able to teach it. I'm not saying everybody can just get up and do it, because it's not that easy to just come up blind, but we can see the logic how we develop that. And the point I wanted us to see is that we can get these two waymarks in the Millerite line, which I don't mean we just invented them now, but we just created them out of a GC 611 quote. And when you create them out of that GC 611 quote, it has impact on two lines. It has impact in the line of the 144,000, this waymark X, and the loud cry, and it confirms that we have two waymarks, 2016, 2018. It confirms that 2016, 2018 are correct. And not only that, now we've developed a story, a narrative that runs through the Millerite line to confirm this. So it's, I think it's established now that we have two established waymarks. The loud cry we already knew, and the way we're doing that is 1840 is the cry, April 44 is the clarification of the cry produced by a disappointment, and then the summer is the true cry. Who had their hand up? Do you have your hand up? Louder, please.
So, I'm understanding what you are doing, but from the beginning there is something you did which was not clear in my mind. So, the quote which we read was saying the movement between 1840 and 1844 was a religious manifestation of the Spirit.
Louder, please.
Now, what made you to mark 1840 to be laying Sunday?
Because she said, okay, no, you answer that. His question is, why did I line up 1840 with the Sunday law? That's his question.
Okay. In bringing up that question, he compares the manifestation of the power of God there with the mighty angel of Revelation 18, and we mark the mighty angel of Revelation 18 on the Sunday.
Tell us when you're not okay.
So meaning the angel of Revelation 18 we can see it at 1840.
Okay, yeah, he hasn't finished yet. Tell us, are you okay with that? He just did that. You okay with that?
Yeah, and when you were saying that it was a glorious manifestation of the power of God, he was comparing it with our history. So that is 1840.
So that's what the quote says. So
No, I'm just answering what is asking.
Yeah.
Why we are lining up Sunday with 1840. Only that.
So do you agree that's what the quote says? It doesn't say Sunday law, but it says that. Yeah. So we put Sunday law there from another quote, Early Writings 277, which you seem to be okay with anyway. So it's lining up the Sunday law with the history of 40 to 44. 40 to 44 is a period of time. You agree with that? So we turn that into a period of time. And the Sunday law history is a period of time. How do we know the Sunday law period? The Sunday law is a period of time. Because what did we read in 277? This angel comes down and what happens? Swells. Do you remember what it says swells? So swell means a time period. So we've got a time period in that in this history and a time period in this history, and because we've got a period of time, 4 years, then we said what would be the end of this period of time, and 44 is a shut door, and so we're going to pick up the shut door. There are those two shut doors here. That's how the line got created.
So meaning we have the end of Revelation at
1840.
No, it doesn't mean we have the angel of Revelation 18 in 1840. It doesn't mean that at all. The way people wanted to get this 40 and bring it back to 9/11, they wanted it to have the angel in 1840. I'm not saying that's what Ellen White is teaching, and I'm not saying that's what that is teaching. It says this looks like this. It's not saying the angel of 18 came down. So this is an example, if you're willing to accept it, that I think you agreed with all of this logic. So did you agree that's what Ellen White was saying? That doesn't look like that. Because I don't think we can get this angel and bring it down to 1840. I don't think you can do that. And that's not the Sunday law. But she's created this structure, so this line is not identical to this line, but it has all the same characteristics, because this is the beginning of the glory, and we know this is the beginning of the glory. So you can pick up identical concepts at the same point, glory and glory, but what produced the glory is different. So I don't want us to go away thinking that we can, if you're going to teach this, don't put 18 down here, because that's not what's being taught. And the reason we keep on putting 18 in 40 is because we see... why do we put 18 at 40 anyway? Why do we put Revelation 18 in 1840? Because we have these Spirit of Prophecy quotes that say, when the towers fall, something's going to happen. Then we bring in Revelation 7 and says, restrain the winds. And we see a restraining of Islam in 1840. So it's the restraining of Islam in 1840 and the restraining of Islam at 9/11. And 9/11 is the towers falling, and the towers fall when the four winds blow, which is Revelation 18. That's why we do all of that, but Ellen White's not doing that at all, and neither am I. I'm just saying they line up, and 18 doesn't go here, but it's glory and glory. Okay? Good. Any questions? Tomorrow we're going to, not tomorrow, Sunday we'll go for a new quote, and it will either be 1888, 804, or Second Selected Messages, 118. We'll go for one of those two, because people have asked about those, and we'll walk through those quotes and see what they teach us. Maybe we'll get through both of them. Any questions?
Okay, so we have not seen it real life, and you are really becoming something else. So we were teaching that you came a mile away.
Okay, so we haven't answered that question. We haven't answered the question about how you get 9/11 and Sunday law and Revelation 18 comes down. We haven't addressed that yet. We will do that. It's an important thing that we need to address. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we give you praise and thanks for your goodness. As we kneel before you on your sacred Holy Sabbath day, we want to thank you for your goodness and your mercy. Lord, already we're 2 weeks into our school, 2/3 of the way through. We only have 1 week of time together. During this coming week, may you help us to press together. May we honour and glorify your name, both in the way we interact with one another and also as your Holy Spirit teaches us as a group of brothers and sisters who want to learn of you. Help us, Father, to put away all strife, all ill feeling that may have existed or even may be existing now. We know that in order for us to truly worship you, we must be at peace one with another. We ask, Lord, during these sacred hours that you would teach us, and more than that, Father, that you would come close to us and we would know that you love us. Please be with us and bless us in Jesus' name. Amen.